name's Curtis Stone, and I run a farm called Green City Acres based out of Kelowna, BC. And we grow vegetables for restaurants, CSA, and farmers markets in 8 different backyards in the downtown core of Kelowna. I'm deeply passionate about trying to just make a difference in the world, but starting at the community level. My whole ambition when I decided I wanted to be a farmer was to just essentially get myself off, as much as I possibly can, the globalized machine of destruction, basically, if you will. I wanted to be a homesteader, but how do you do that if you can't buy land? And I come from modest means. I wasn't ready to sign my life away for a 30-year mortgage to live off the land and then work for the bank. So I would say my passion is living off the land and also encouraging particularly young people that they can do that too, and it's actually not that hard. If you can get your mind around removing the barriers to entry into the typical farming sense of, you need to have land and capital, there's another way. Spin farming is a perfect example of a way on how you can do this, live off the land. Spin farming means small plot intensive, and so it's a methodology of farming that this guy named Wally Satsowich from Saskatoon created after a number of years of being a rural farmer, where he was driving vegetables into the Saskatoon to run his market garden. And he always ran into problems where in his rural farm, he had a mortgage, he had problems with deer and pests that would get in more open, in more of an open field sense, problems with irrigation and water. If you're on well water, sometimes you don't get access to water until the ground level water rises up in the spring. So he always had these challenges. And so he started to grow some of his crops in the city. In his uncle's backyard, he was growing spinach and lettuce because those were always problematic in the rural sense. And it didn't take him too long until he realized that, wow, these crops that I'm growing in the city actually making way more money and are way less work. So he eventually sold his land and just moved everything into the city, had 20 backyards in Saskatoon. And so that's where spin farming came from. And then, a guy like me looks at that and goes, whoa, this is amazing. I thought you had to buy land and have a tractor and all this kind of stuff, but you don't. You can do it all with hand tools. It's good to have a commercial rototiller. Spin isn't it's not a gardening book that you can open up. How do I deal with slugs? How do I amend soil? It's pretty much business. It shows you how to run it as a business, how to plan beds based on economic values. Like a spin bed can produce $100 per harvest per crop, and it's sort of they create these benchmark figures that you should achieve in growing and selling. How you design your garden and how you design your farm is totally dependent on what your market demands. But that's the biggest advantage of farming in the city, is you're in the market, you're right there. You don't have to travel into the city to meet those connections. They're already there and they come to you often. What really inspires me about the food movement is, or just food, I guess, is the movement that's come along with it, that how excited people are about food itself. And I'd never known that. I mean, I'd been a musician my whole life, and I always had a hard time connecting with the general populace, because if you don't like, say, indie rock music, then you really can't connect with me. But everybody likes food, so it's an easy thing to connect with people. So for me, that's the most exciting part, is like, wow, all of a sudden I can relate to everybody. I did 3,000 quinoa plants in my second year, and I had really big hopes. Like, oh yeah, this for me, this is the next step. Like, okay, I'm really gonna get off the grid if I can start growing quinoa, because then I can replace a major protein source for myself, and I eat a lot of quinoa. Biggest failure ever with the farm. It just didn't work. It's too hot in Kelowna. It didn't produce seeds. I had these beautiful plants that were like 8 feet tall, multiple colors, rainbow colors, and in the late summer, I'm just like, where are the seeds in these bloody things? There's such a demand in the city for local food. Urban farming has a potential to we can create a whole new system here in the city. I think that's really exciting, because well, for one, the demand is there, but there's also the sense that young people can do this without owning land because there's lawns and nooks and crannies of places, gardens, empty spaces and empty lots that people can occupy and grow food in. Joel Salatin, huge inspiration for me. Will Allen, the first time I heard of who Will Allen was, I was totally blown away. I had a chance to meet him here in Vancouver last year. Michael Abelman. I discovered urban farming by the internet. Like I heard about this stuff just by opening the can of worms that permaculture is, that led to all kinds of other things. Now I don't even consider myself a permaculturalist really. I'm more into the production in the economic sense. But seeing a guy like Michael Abelman speak, I was like, whoa, he channeled everything that I'd been thinking in my mind. I didn't know I was going to be a farmer. My original motivation to do something along these lines was I had to get out of the city. I was living in Montreal. I had been a musician my whole life. I pigeonholed myself into thinking that was the only thing that I could do. And I really was always fascinated with sustainability and all these kind of things. I was into these earth ships, and I heard about permaculture, and then I discovered John Jevons. And I came back out west with the intent of buying land, but that was really hard to do. So I did a few more years of tree planting, and I went on a bike tour. I rode my bike from Kelowna to Tijuana, about 4,000 K, and I visited farms and eco-villages and off-grid homesteads and things like this along the way. And it wasn't so much what I learned about farming or what was possible in the sense of sustainable living and food production, but what I learned about myself was that, and not just about myself, but about people, is that we're way stronger than we give ourselves credit for. When you go out and do something in the world and you put yourself out there, you kind of wave the flag in a sense, like this is who I am, this is what I believe in. And when you travel by a bike, people can read that on you. They can see that, okay, this guy definitely has a certain set of values. And what I discovered when I did that is that I was always approached by the people that I wanted to be approached by. The kind of people that I wanted to talk to were the kind of people that came to me. And it was this weird thing that everywhere I went, it was this serendipitous experience where people were just inviting me into their house and cooking me dinner and all these acts of generosity. And it was incredible because by the time I got to Tijuana, when I went to the border, my original plan was to go across the US the whole way. I was so charged just like by my physical aptitude by getting down there, and in my mind, I guess I'd really refined my ideas by doing this. I just felt like I could do anything. And that whole experience of inspiring people, but also being inspired and kind of re-inspired by what, I kind of had a dark vision of humanity, I guess, before I went. That was it was a big inspirational moment for me, or a time that when I came back, I was just like, you know what, I can do anything. And that raising myself up with that level of health or lifestyle by riding so much, I said, I never want to go back to the way I was. Living this kind of lifestyle, riding this many kilometers a day, it was just elevated me to a point where it's like, I don't ever want to go back to sitting in a car, sitting in a job. I want to just live physically and just live this totally charged lifestyle. When I decided that, I'm going to do a farm, and I'm going to farm in backyards, and I'm going to do it by bike. I mean, I didn't run into a lot of people that said that's fucking crazy. But I remember my dad was just like so blown away by, are you out of your mind? Like, you think you can make money farming for one, but you think you can make money on less than an acre of land? And to see the look on his face the first year when I told him, I put in $7,000 to start the business and I made 22 my first year, which wasn't a lot of money, but it was, hey, that's more than I thought I could make. And he was just blown away. And then each year, we doubled and tripled what we've done on the same amount of land, the same amount of people working. It's just been incredible on how many heads have turned. I'm one of these kind of people that just gets into something and I just get really into it. When I'm not farming, I'm talking about farming. I'm going out on the road and teaching workshops and giving lectures at universities and trying to engage young people in doing this. For me, this is just what I've decided that my life mission is to be. I want to be part of social change. If you're disenfranchised about the way things are in society right now, the Occupy Wall Street movement, all these things, there's something you can do that has way more powerful of an impact than walking in the streets and asking the government to subsidize education and all these things. Is let's create the world we want to live in. And that means getting our hands dirty. We all have to get involved. We can protest till we're blue in the face. And the government, in most cases, isn't in the position to actually change it for us because they're just as much of a slaves to the system as we are. So I feel like we need to bring labor, food production, production of goods back to our country and our cities. And so, yeah, that's what I mean. I mean, besides that, I still like to play music. I like to play my guitar. I play my upright bass. But I'm really a restless person. Maybe you can tell. But I'm really bent on showing people that there's something else we can do than protesting in the streets. It's like we need to start growing our own food, building things, and creating physically the world we want to live in. People like it. People really like it. I find our customers are like the hardcore. They're the hardcore, because they're like, I'm buying from the guy who rides his bike. You get a level of hardcore customers that maybe other farmers don't experience so much, because the people that are really into fitness and stuff, they're like, yeah, this guy, this is hardcore. And this is kind of a neat aspect of it that I never thought about. Was it's a way of marketing in a way. Like my ambition to ride a bike, to do it, was I wanted to have that lifestyle, and I didn't want to burn fossil fuels. And yeah, people just really embrace that. And restaurants too were just like, yeah, the guy with the bike, that's become our brand in a way. I just want to be life-affirming. Every action I take in my life, I want to be life-affirming, because every action you take in the global economy is destructive to the environment. It's destructive it causes social inequity, wipes out indigenous cultures, forests, you name it. Everything we do, whether it's buying a can of Coke, driving your car, whatever we do, is destructive. I'm really excited about getting to the point where everything we do is almost is a reflection of what happens in nature. Everything creates more life, builds soil fertility, purifies the air. I don't think that having an economy that's like that is impossible. I think the growth-based economy, forget about it. That's not possible. Why does it need to grow? That only serves a certain group of people. If we have things that we can trade and we grow food and everybody's fed, that sounds like a good economy to me. The biggest two pieces of advice I tell people, and this goes against what everything in society says, is if you want to farm, drop out of university and don't buy land. Do not even think about buying land. If you live in the Lower Mainland, don't bother. If you live in the Okanagan, you live anywhere in BC really, maybe except up north, unless you're in a position where you can buy something cash, stay away from debt. It just puts so much pressure on your operation right off the bat, and if you want to come into it comfortably, having that pressure isn't going to help you. It's going to really hinder your operation. So I think that's the biggest advantage of spin farming in the sense that we see, is not owning land and having that freedom to shift things around if you need to move away, then you can do it. I could walk away from my operation in a heartbeat if I needed to. I have zero debt. I don't own any of my land. I don't have to worry about selling a piece of land if I want to leave it. So don't buy land. Don't go to university for urban farming, or if you want to pursue that for your own interests, absolutely. But if you want to be an urban farmer, read the books, get started. That's all you got to do. Oh, jeez. My favorite vegetable is carrots, so maybe I would be a carrot. I like the way when carrots go to seed, and the way the seed shatters, and then they reseed themselves. Well, every vegetable reseeds itself, but maybe I'd be a carrot. And I can't tell you exactly why, but...
Strong and sturdy.
Yeah, exactly.